Hey gamers, you already finished Silksong, right? And now the problem isn't that game anymore, it's everything else. Because honestly, everything starts to feel kind of average after that. But I'm not letting you stay stuck in that state, so I lined up 25 Metroidvanias that come close in quality or even stand on their own without constantly getting dragged into comparison with Silksong. And yeah, some of you are maybe disagree with the ranking. That's okay, everyone's got their own taste. Alright then, without further ado, let's get started. If you're looking for a new Metroidvania, after finishing the big names in the genre, Twilight Monk is a hidden gem that's easy to recommend in 2026. You play as Raziel, a Mooncan monk who travels across Speria to stop Nox before he unleashes a world-ending threat. The Metroidvania gameplay is solid. Platforming, secret hunting, and dungeon design all deliver a strong sense of progression. What helps Twilight Monk stand out is its classic RPG-style overworld. Instead of one interconnected map, you explore a larger world before entering main dungeons. There's also a monster hunting system that rewards you with permanent upgrades and extra bonuses, giving you plenty of reasons to keep fighting, exploring, and checking every corner of the map. Before we continue to the video, I want to give you recommendation to buying games in this modern era, and that's it, ENEBA. ENEBA is a digital marketplace made for gamers with over 40,000 products available. You can find PC games, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo titles, gift cards, in-game currency, and a lot more all in one place. What makes it really worth checking out is the pricing. A lot of the deals are cheaper compared to official stores, and there are cashback offers too, which helps you save even more. What I also like is they support a lot of different payment methods, so you've got flexibility depending on what you usually use. They also offer secure payments and 24/7 customer support, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more polished and trustworthy when you're buying games. If you like getting great games at better prices or just want more value for your money, ENEBA is honestly one of the best places to check before buying anything. So if you're a smart guy, then you already know exactly what to do. All you have to do is click my link in the description below, search for your favorite games, and redeem the game code you already paid for. And by using my link, you'll not just get awesome deals, but also help me support this channel. Alright then, let's get back to the list. Voidwrought is a Metroidvania you should absolutely play if you've already finished Silksong. Why? Because this game feels incredibly close to it, especially with its insanely good art style. The inspiration from Hollow Knight and Silksong is crystal clear. You will play as a simulacrum, a mysterious being tasked with taking down powerful bosses and collecting ichor. This currency is used to buy items, upgrade your combat abilities, and expand your main hub by unlocking new paths, rooms, and facilities. The Relic and Soul systems add plenty of variety, giving you active abilities and passive bonuses that you can mix and match to fit your playstyle. And then there's the downward attack mechanic that lets you bounce off enemies and hazards, bringing back that same satisfying feeling that Hollow Knight fans will instantly recognize. Unlike most Metroidvanias, Biomorph stands out with its monster transformation system at the core of progression. Each region has unique enemies, and after defeating them, you can transform into them to unlock new paths, solve puzzles, and access previously blocked areas. Each transformation serves a different purpose. Some improve your jump height, others extend your dash, while certain forms have special abilities needed to progress deeper into the world. Outside the transformation system, Biomorph also offers responsive movement, smooth dash, platforming, and a growing set of traversal abilities that expand throughout the adventure. Yup, if you're a Metroidvania fan looking for something that breaks away from the usual formula, this one is worth checking out. Next up, we've got Moonscars. You play as Grey Irma, a clay-born warrior who wakes up in a bleak, dying world with no memory of who she is or how she got there. Her journey revolves around tracking down the sculptor, the mysterious creator responsible for her existence, while uncovering the dark secrets hidden throughout the world. The mechanic that keeps Moonscars interesting is its spite system. The longer you stay alive, the more passive buffs you can collect to power up your build. But if you get wrecked, they're gone, and moon hunger can make the enemies even more dangerous. dangerous. It's a great way of making every fight feel like it actually matters. When it comes to boss fights, Moonscars usually delivers. Yup, some are fantastic tests of skill, while others can feel a bit rough around the edges and aren't quite as memorable as the game's strongest encounters. Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus feels more like a living painting than a typical Metroidvania. You play as a fox spirit exploring a world inspired by Japanese mythology filled with gods and yokai. Visually, it stands out with a hand-painted 2.5D art style, so detailed you'll probably stop just to look around. Though the game will punish you if you linger too long, the gameplay revolves around bounce-based traversal, exploration, and boss fights that require reading attack patterns instead of mindless attacking, and combat also features a Daruma system that acts as a support tool during fights, but the main focus stays on bosses with distinct patterns and gimmicks. The pacing is calmer than most Metroidvanias, with moments like resting at save points, drinking tea, and visiting villages for upgrades instead of constant combat. Next, we have Constance, and this one really came out of nowhere as one of the more interesting Metroidvanias. You follow an artist named Constance, who gets trapped inside her own mind. Gameplay sticks to familiar Metroidvania movement, air dashes, wall jumps, pogo attacks, and homing moves that make traversal feel smooth and fast. Then there's the paint mechanic, which shifts the rhythm of play. Every ability consumes your paint meter. When it hits 0, you enter a corrupted state where abilities can be spammed, but each action drains your health instead. This creates a constant push and pull between safe play and risky aggression. The story carries a lot of weight. Constance dealing with pressure and mental strain makes the journey feel more personal than expected. Next up, we've got Afterimage. Why bring this game up? Some Metroidvania fans might still not have played a game with a map this massive. Engarden's world is huge, but not in a way that always feels rewarding to explore. It often turns into long travel sections that start to feel draining, especially with repeated backtracking. The skill tree looks deep at first, with plenty of ways to build your character as you level up. It gives a steady sense of progression as you move through the world. Combat is where the game holds up best. Hits feel impactful, animations are clear, and switching weapons keeps fights smooth and engaging. Overall, it's still a solid Metroidvania, but exploration and progression don't always match the strength of its combat. Guacamelee 2 is a Metroidvania sequel that improves damn near everything from the first game. The story once again follows Juan, the legendary luchador, as he's forced to save multiple realities from a new threat known as Salvador. Combat keeps the series' signature fast-paced feel. Enemies come with different attack patterns, so you can't just mash buttons and expect to get away with it. The deeper you get into the game, the more it pushes you to combine movement and attacks at the same time if you want to survive. There's also a 4-player co-op mode, and it makes the whole experience a lot more wild. You and your friends can beat the hell out of enemies together, combos are flying everywhere, and the screen is constantly packed with action. So if you're looking to kick back, mess around, and laugh with your buddies, this mode adds a ton of fun to the game. Mio Memories in Orbit is a Metroidvania set inside a massive ship that's slowly falling apart, and you basically move through the leftovers of a civilization that's long gone. There's also a layer of mystery here because the game doesn't hand you answers right away about what happened to the humans or why the ship's AI guardians started abandoning their duties. You'll also find yourself backtracking a lot since traversal abilities unlock gradually, which keeps older areas relevant instead of just being one-and-done zones. Once the gameplay loop kicks in, the game starts showing its two sides. The platforming is solid and demands precision, while the boss fights feel tense and gradually shift into more technical encounters that force you to actually learn patterns instead of just winging it. Yeah, if you've already played a bunch in the genre, this is one of those games you really shouldn't sleep on. Blade Chimera is a cyberpunk Metroidvania where you play as Shin, a demon hunter living in a futuristic world where humans are slowly turning into monsters. The vibe feels a lot like Devil May Cry, and yeah, the combat is a big part of why. The game gives you plenty of melee and ranged weapons to mix and match however you want. Fighting alongside you is Lux, a mysterious demon who can transform into a sword and grants Shin a variety of special abilities. Lux isn't just another weapon either, she adds a whole new layer to combat with powerful attacks and unique skills that keep every fight feeling fast and dynamic. The boss battles are also a major highlight, featuring impressive visual designs and attack patterns that are fun to learn and overcome. That said, Blade Chimera is noticeably easier than a lot of modern Metroidvanias, which honestly makes it a great entry point if you're just getting into the genre. If you've played GRIME and jumped into GRIME 2, it's obvious right away this sequel isn't just more of the same, it feels bigger and more focused in what it wants to do. In the first game, some builds clearly outperformed others, so even if you wanted to experiment, you usually ended up sticking to what worked. GRIME 2 opens things up a lot more. There are more weapons and you're free to try different setups without feeling locked into one dominant style. Combat also hits differently now. It feels more rhythmic and parrying isn't optional anymore. It's the core of every fight. If your timing is sharp, you control the fight. If it isn't, the game punishes you fast. Absorb Mold is also fully part of combat now. You can chain it directly into abilities and it actually matters in fights instead of just sitting in the background. There's also a difficulty option this time, so you can adjust the challenge if you need it without overthinking anything. Mandragora Whispers of the Witch Tree is one of the biggest surprise Metroidvania releases of 2025. Unlike most Metroidvanias out there, Mandragora does something you don't see very often in the genre, a full class system and deep character progression kind of like Salt and Sanctuary. You can pick from several different classes and mix skills from multiple skill trees to create a build that actually fits the way you want to play. A lot of players have pointed out that this is what makes Mandragora feel more like a full-blown action RPG than your typical Metroidvania. Combat is another major highlight. Every weapon has real weight behind it, every dodge matters, and the boss fights will absolutely make you learn their attack patterns if you want to survive. You can't just button mash your way through this one. F.I.S.T. Forged in Shadow Torch is one of those Metroidvanias that probably flew under a lot of people's radar, which is kind of crazy because it's better than expected. Rayton has access to 3 main weapons you can switch between on the fly. The fist hits hard, the drill focuses on damage, and the whip gives you range. Mixing them keeps combat fresh, especially once you start chaining combos and juggling enemies. At first, the combat can feel a bit slow, but it gets way more satisfying as new moves and weapon options unlock over time. Story-wise, it doesn't try to reinvent anything. It's a resistance story against a robotic regime controlling the city, but the cast is solid enough to keep you engaged and moving forward.
Your flesh is not strong enough.
If you've played Reverie Under the Moonlight before, Moonlit Farewell will immediately feel like an upgraded version of it. It's not the kind of sequel that tries to reinvent everything. Instead, it takes what already worked in Reverie and polishes the weaker parts. Combat feels better, exploration is more rewarding, visuals are more polished, and the overall adventure just feels more refined. Boss fights are more interesting, and the pixel art looks way more detailed. It's not a massive revolution, but an evolution you can clearly feel throughout the game. The difference is that almost every system feels smoother and more comfortable to play. There are fewer moments that interrupt the flow, and exploration rewards feel more consistent compared to earlier entries. Death's Gambit. Afterlife is a Souls-like action RPG with Metroidvania elements, and it basically turns the original game into something way bigger. You play as a soldier who gets bound to death after dying too early. As long as that contract is active, you can't die for real. Instead, you're sent to hunt down powerful immortals and their armies, all leading toward the source of immortality to bring balance back between life and death. Progression is handled through a big skill tree, with new abilities unlocking after major boss fights. Later on, on, you also unlock a secondary class system after beating a specific boss, which adds way more depth to builds and customization. The level cap hits 150 in a normal run, and New Game Plus pushes it even further if you're still not done min-maxing your character. Castlevania Symphony of the Night is one of the key foundations that shaped the Metroidvania genre into what it is today. Exploration is the main reason this game is still loved decades later. Almost every corner of Dracula's castle hides something worth finding. Sure, it has a few flaws. The difficulty can fall apart once Alucard gets certain overpowered equipment, and the RPG mechanics were a controversial change for some longtime Castlevania fans back in the day. But honestly, those issues barely matter when stacked against everything the game gets right. The exploration, atmosphere, visuals, and music are just that damn good. Yep, this is a masterpiece, one of the most influential video games ever made, and a benchmark that countless Metroidvanias are still chasing to this day. You know, Castlevania Aria of Sorrow is the game that got the series back on track after a few entries that didn't really land. If Symphony of the Night was the peak of Castlevania on PlayStation, Aria of Sorrow proved that formula still works even on something as small as the Game Boy Advance. Exploration is still what makes this game addictive. The castle is packed with hidden paths, new abilities that open previously unreachable areas, and enough weapons and gear to constantly make you curious about what's next. Backtracking actually feels worth it most of the time. After the credits, there's still more to do. Beyond collecting every soul, you can unlock Julius Mode and play as Julius Belmont in a more classic Castlevania style. It's not just filler, it actually gives you a reason to go back in and run it again. Ori and the Blind Forest still deserves to be considered one of the most influential modern Metroidvanias out there, not because it reinvented the genre, but because it executes nearly every part of its design incredibly well. Exploration constantly rewards your curiosity, movement feels fantastic from start to finish, and the visuals and music leave a lasting impression long after the credits roll. Combat isn't the game's strongest feature, but that's hardly a deal breaker since the real focus is exploration and platforming. And then there's the presentation. Ori still looks gorgeous even years after its release. Every area is filled with vibrant colors, stunning lighting effects, and beautifully fluid animation. Combined with an incredible soundtrack, many moments hit much harder emotionally thanks to how well everything comes together. If you've been around ninja games for a while, then the name SHINOBI isn't just some random title. It's one of Sega's most legendary franchises, and used to be one of the defining action platformers of its era. After being gone for years, Joe Musashi is finally back in SHINOBI, Art of Vengeance, and thankfully this comeback isn't just riding on nostalgia, the combat feels damn good. Joe has fast attacks, ninja skills, parries, and a bunch of special abilities that make every fight feel satisfying. The game feels like a mix of an action platformer and a Metroidvania, but the action side is clearly the main focus. It's all about fast movement and stylish combat rather than spending hours wandering around the map, which makes it easy to enjoy even if you're not usually a Metroidvania fan. Ender Magnolia, Bloom in the Mist is a dark fantasy Metroidvania set thousands of years after Ender Lilies, but it tells its own standalone story. The game's strongest point is its atmosphere, with detailed visuals and an emotional soundtrack that makes exploration feel immersive and engaging. Instead of throwing a bunch of different weapons at you like a traditional action RPG, Ender Magnolia has you recruit homunculi that serve as your attacks, skills, and exploration abilities. It makes progression feel natural, since every new companion you recruit usually opens up new combat options as well as new paths to explore. Combat is also more accessible compared to many other Metroidvania games. Boss fights are engaging to learn but not overly punishing. Overall, it's often recommended for players who enjoy exploration-focused Metroidvanias without extreme difficulty. Metroidvania fans, this is one of those games you should play. If you've been waiting for Samus Aran's return to 2D, that nearly 20-year wait pays off. Metroid Dread isn't trying to be revolutionary. It focuses on execution, refining the old formula into something more modern, responsive, and tighter. The story is simple, but the presentation works. Samus is mostly silent, but her animations and body language give her personality without dialogue. Exploration stays at the core. Planet ZDR has branching paths, hidden upgrades, and doors that only open with specific abilities. Going back to earlier areas after getting new skills is still satisfying. Combat steps up with a melee counter system that matters, especially in boss fights. You can't just spam attacks, you need to read patterns and execute. Some bosses will make you retry multiple times just to learn their rhythm. Why do I still highly recommend Blasphemous II? Because the game just got a free expansion called Blasphemous II: The Third Sin. This expansion takes players to a massive gothic castle that used to serve as a refuge for nobility before the miracle tore everything apart. The new area is huge, adding a significant chunk of fresh content on top of what's already there. It also introduces a familiar system with 3 magical companions that follow the penitent one throughout the journey. A new weapon is added too, a bladed whip with its own regular and special attacks, giving combat a fresh rhythm compared to the existing arsenal. All of this makes combat feel more varied and gives longtime players a solid reason to jump back in and experiment with new builds and strategies. Think you've played every great Metroidvania out there? There's a good chance you missed one. The Last Faith has a DLC called The Last Faith Awakened Ancients. It adds dungeon mode, boss rush, new game plus new weapons and bosses. The new bosses are praised for being more complex and demanding compared to many fights in the base game, even if they don't always match the impact of the most memorable encounters from the main campaign. For those expecting a major expansion of the game's lore and world building, the DLC doesn't really expand much or answer lingering questions. Still, I genuinely think The Last Faith is worth playing, especially if your Metroidvania experience mostly revolves around Hollow Knight and Silksong. There's a lot in this genre people are missing out on. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is proof that Ubisoft can still pull off a game that genuinely catches you off guard. The game brings the Prince of Persia series back in a big way, mixing fast-paced action, precision platforming, and Metroidvania-style exploration into one solid package. What I enjoyed most is the combat. The mix of attacks, dodges, parries, and time manipulation powers makes boss fights feel dynamic and engaging, with very little repetition. It also stands out visually compared to many Metroidvania games. The production value is high, and it looks far more polished than the usual pixel art or cartoon-style approach in the genre. There are a few issues, like a fast travel system that can be annoying and a story that doesn't always land. Still, when the combat, platforming, and exploration are this good, those flaws are easy to overlook.
Try me.
9 Souls is a 2D sci-fi Metroidvania that goes ridiculously hard. Honestly, this thing should have been in the Game of the Year conversation back in 2024. This isn't just another Metroidvania, it's a damn parry paradise. Blocking, countering, and striking back feels incredibly satisfying once you master it. Miss a parry and you'll get punished. Nail it and you'll feel like a badass. Red Candle Games somehow brought Sekiro-style parrying into a 2D world and absolutely nailed it. If parrying isn't your thing, be ready to get your ass kicked. Dodging can save you for a while, but sooner or later the game forces you to learn its mechanics. The story is surprisingly good too, packed with mystery, memorable characters, and just enough creepy atmosphere to remind you of the studio's horror roots. If you love challenging combat and rewarding exploration, you really shouldn't miss this one. And that's it for today. Those were lists the 25 best Metroidvania games that you should play after Silksong. Got a hidden gem I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video or discovered a new title to add to your collection, feel free to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll never miss future content. Once again, if you want to buy games with cheap price, the link in the description, okay? So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.